My name is Alicia Roberts Novak, and I'm the host of the Generation X Studio. We felt that, this would be a good way for us to kind of like talk about an era that seems to be kind of forgotten, right?
Welcome to the Gen X Studio, where members of Generation X come onto the show to tell their stories. Our goal is to document not only the experiences of growing up Generation X, but also share our perspectives with future generations, in the hope that they can learn about the past and use that knowledge to help build a better future. Join us and find out what makes Generation X great. Let's go! On today's episode of Gen X Studio, Alicia and Crystal Odom-McKinney reflect on becoming friends while at Lindblom, the expectations they had to live up to, and the difference between growing up as a member of Generation X as opposed to today.
We met probably about the first or second week of high school because, as you were saying, we had to take an entry exam to get into our magnet school. Mm-hmm. And back then, those were just kind of like coming of shape because we were the second generation after the school segregated. So for us, it was kind of like this badge of honor, right? As gifted students to be able to have this opportunity to even test into a school that we didn't have opportunities prior to that. And our parents, maybe a couple of them, really broke that color barrier, I think, at schools back then. But I remember the anticipation. Do you remember that? Of having that weight on your shoulders because you would kind of prep for the exam the fall before, right?
Yeah. And
your parents would say, okay, I need you to get up early because you're going to have this standardized test and it's really important if you're going to get into this school. And it was really kind of like the only school I think that I tested in because we had one in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah. Throughout the city there were, but the testing part was really important. And then at that time, not even having a clue, at that age of what was going to happen. So that was pretty cool. It's pretty cool. The first year that we entered that wonderful institution.
Right, which a lot of people are like, that's a really famous school because we have so many different, from people from who went to the Olympics, to entertainers, to judges, comedians, newscasters that are super famous that came out of that school. But I remember being dropped off with my parents with my number 2 pencils and being told, you better be great.
Yeah.
Right. And do you remember when we first got there that first year? It was like the expectation was there's no excuse for not being excellent, and the responsibility of that was huge. And I think that's kind of what.
Yeah, that's what kind of summed up and really prepped us for having the tools to be successful in life. Struggles, and I'll just kind of start from the beginning. Struggles from waking up early in the morning and commuting. A lot of us commuted, and we took 2 buses and 2 trains to get from one side of town to the bordering Inglewood, as well as Marquette Park neighborhood. So that itself took a lot. I can remember personally getting up around 5-ish. And, leaving out, around 6 and to get to school on time for courses. So waking up and getting there, that was a struggle. Also, a struggle that I can remember real good is rivals. We were often rivals with other neighborhood schools. And so we sometimes had a reputation of not being that aggressor. And, a lot of times we were faced with that too, and commuting back and forth to school, me personally as well. But also struggles with just, and I wouldn't say struggles might be a difficult word, but maybe challenges or bumps in the road. And that was just to raise the bar, to keep that bar raised as a student. Every single, and I kind of skipped over this, but this was the coolest part about Lindblom. Students came back with their their college gear on. They came back from whatever school they went to, and it was something that we all wanted to do. And that's something that I can really remember, was that the school raised the bar, and the students that walked those halls and left came back and raised the bar for other generations to want to go to school, to want to be successful and to go away or join the military or be this global leader and stuff. So that was, I won't say struggle, but it was a challenge. It was an important challenge for us.
You were constantly being kind of like, you had to prove yourself every day. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that is changed in the dynamic of educators to how parents think of how they're rearing their children, but also as a kid, because I was just listening to you and I'm thinking, my kids never had that much freedom to be able to do that. They take school buses now, or we dropped them off, and we were latchkey kids. So you would come home, sometimes your parents were working, sometimes you had to get dressed yourself and make these long journeys with 2 buses and 2 trains. But I also remember in having that freedom and that responsibility is you're going to a world once again that had just been desegregated. So I was the sports manager. So I took all the statistics and I traveled with the baseball team, the basketball team, and the football team. And places like Marquette Park that were predominantly
white at the time,
Caucasian, we would get off the bus and immediately be just told, you know, you're not wanted here in some of the most amazing kind of like, you know, racist ways. And it was interesting because we weren't raised that way. A lot of us came from mixed families. We came from, all of us didn't come from low income families like the 2 of us did. Some of them came from middle class families. So we didn't really know how to behave in those situations. And it was the adults around us and our teachers who kind of isolated us to let us know that you can do anything, you know? So for us to say like difficulties and challenges, people have to understand that time in which, you know, we were coming up where you had to face politics, you had to face society woes, as well as just being kids. Like she was saying, as far as like, we invented streetwear. And a lot of people were like, well, where'd you guys get this from? Or we had social groups and they were like, well, you know, most people understand fraternities and sororities, but our social groups were kind of like fraternities and sororities. They were based on that, but they were based on community efforts and fundraising and giving back to the community. But it gave us a sense of responsibility that our peers didn't have.
Some of the things that I feel made us, I'll just say the word resilient, because we were taught with a lot of tools that were basic. Like, you know, we didn't have communication devices, but at the same time, we knew to come in when the street lights came on. You know, we were taught what chores were. Cleanup week, it wasn't a spring break or spring vacation. We cleaned up on Saturdays. You know, we listened to music or a Soul Train on Saturday mornings, and we knew that it was time to clean up. But we knew that these were the basic fundamentals. We were creative. We, you know, when we didn't have video games, we knew how to play with ourselves, cards, and, you know, be very creative in our learning and what we did. Those basic things were taught to us. Transportation was our shoes and our feet. You know, walking to parks and doing for others, respecting your elders, entertaining your elders even, you know, when there were parties, you know, you were often, you were the maid, you went to get cigarettes and then you danced
or you
for
sang,
a quarter.
Or you played the piano.
So these were the things that, so when you ask me or when you ask us, can you do certain things? Will you do certain things? These are the things, and these are the ways that in our resilience, in our upbringing, which makes us so courageous and makes us so, you know, where we can take on those challenges and move mountains, because we did it. We started a lot of stuff from basic foundations. We were communicating without telephones and, you know, even rotary phones or whatever, you know, and walking and talking and learning and writing, cursive, you know, things that they don't do anymore, you know. So those were the things that those foundations made us. And that's definitely what brought us to where we are and gave us a certain sense of resilience that we carry in everything that we do. So those are just not things that you take away. Those are our shields. Those are our badges of honor. And those are, you know, a lot of the things that within our generation that sticks with us, that wasn't with our parents and can't be with the generations before. So it's a good thing, you know, those certain elements.
We had things like Jack and Jill that were put on the cotillions with the church, and you were introduced to society. Everybody didn't get that, right? And so for us, their expectation was, you know, this is the next progression of how we're going to build out the community and how we're going to get into the workforce. because a lot of those opportunities weren't there. And coming out for the civil rights movement, there was a lot of things that came down through that legislation of not just the Voters' Rights Act, but also the fact that we were getting rid of redlining so people could move into different neighborhoods. People could get certain jobs that they didn't have before. Universities were, because we were being desegregated, were able to apply for different universities. Things that people take for granted right now. If it wasn't for our parents and the baby boomers and the great generation before us, we wouldn't have the opportunities to give to the millennials and the iGens that are coming up right now. So for us, that was the expectation that we needed to kind of like take the mantle on and the responsibility on for the next step in the next generation.
Yeah, so my dad came to Chicago during the Great Migration in the 60s from a very segregated Birmingham, Alabama during that time to live a better life. And so work was important and work ethic was important. Same for my mom. Both of my parents worked like 30 plus years in one job. We don't do that anymore, right? But education was equally important because knowledge is power, and the importance of getting your education and getting the tools to be successful in life was a strong foundation. So yeah, it was no other way in my household. Go to work, go to school, get your education, and do what you need to do. So, that was very important and really instilled in me early on. And, one of the reasons that I feel compelled to continue to give back to the community and just help others and teach others the importance of getting your education and staying educated. Every day is another day to do something new and make a difference. So, that's just very important in what I do. And definitely it started from my parents and definitely from what I learned in high school. The advice that I would give my my teenage self: keep moving and keep pushing, and also be sure to carry in life every single step and every single moment, whether good, bad, or ugly. Carry that with you, because those are foundations that make you bigger and better. Your falls and your scabs and your scrapes are, definitely things that will carry you and make you stronger and make you better. So definitely, understanding that and understanding just as you fall, you can get up and keep going. So all about encouragement and definitely, as I mentioned before, confidence.
Coming up next on the Gen X Studio, Reverend Andre Kellum Sr. joins us to discuss growing up as a member of Generation X, his journey becoming a business owner, and provides advice for young entrepreneurs. If you'd like to donate or be a part of the Gen X Project, contact us at GENXQUE, that's genxq.org.